Okay, so the narrator of the book is your great nephew, the
My
fictional
great-nephew.
historian Charles A. Coulombe III.
Yes, poor kid.
How much of this the perspective from the book? How much is him, and how much is you?
Well, the afterword in 2016 is all me, as is what is called the essential postlude. That's all me. But I try to the best of my ability to put myself in the mindset for the rest of it, in the mindset of the fictional author. I tried to think, how would he look at things? I mean, obviously, the biggest chunk of every chapter is historical. But again, every historian has a point of view. So I'm trying to look at I was trying to look at them the way he would do. And remember, the tendency for each of us, whoever we are, when we're writing history, is the unspoken idea that what we have now is better than what came before. I don't care who you are, I don't care what your system is. If you're not starving to death and you're not being beaten on a regular basis, then you kind of sort of have this feeling that what you've got now is the best it's ever been, even if you don't think about it. So, although there are some things that might give the idea that Charles A. Coulombe III isn't omniscient,
Mm-hmm.
I did my very best to write it from his point of view.
One of my favorite lines in it, I don't remember the exact dates, but it had to do with the foundation of the country. And you said he said this country was not founded in 1772. Is that?
It was not founded in 1776,
Yeah.
but in 1492 or 1607.
Is that him or is that you?
That's actually both of us. I taught him well, even though he hasn't been born yet. No, that is certainly me, but it's also him.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we come to it for very different reasons. In my case, I say 1492 because one thing that I'm painfully aware of, being both of French-Canadian descent and an inhabitant of a city founded by Spain that was only conquered by the United States some 70 years after the Declaration of Independence, I'm very, very much aware of the fact that in reality the history of all the American countries is very much intertwined.
Mm.
And so that date goes back to 1492. But if I were to focus specifically on American institutions and all that, they go back to 1607, Jamestown. Where did we get our first legislature? Virginia. First governor? Virginia. First counties? Virginia. It all goes back to that. Your notaries public, your coroners, your constables, your sheriffs, everything that forms the basic elements of the government that you live under from the state now goes back to that year.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite points of the book that you seem to be making, is that it contrasts with the notion that when we split from the monarchy, it was a clean split, and that everything we created was totally ours. But you show that there are roots, monarchist roots, in law, in many different things.
Absolutely, because political independence did not change really who we were. Nobody's like that. If tomorrow we suddenly had to have a different form of government, I don't care what, something different from what we have now. Number one, we would not cease to be the people we are at this moment. We're the products of our education, everything we've been through. Number one. Number two, in building something new, we would use the foundation stones we already have. Even the most revolutionary governments you can think of, Russia after 1917, France after 1789, they all used the building blocks of what they'd inherited. Because what else are you going to do? You can't create these things like magic out of nothing. So if today you go to the websites of Russian and French government ministries and all that, you'll be amazed to see how many of them trace their descent all the way back to their monarchs. Because when you have a new government, very often not the top people, but the bureaucrats and the lower echelon you inherit. They make the jump. There's a phrase they call it institutional memory. And every institution has one. And usually the institutions that make up a government, the memory of those institutions is longer than the memory of the government itself. The French Foreign Ministry is far older than the French Republic. Well, it's true with us too.